Hey everyone, this is the Mind of Lilith, and thank you for joining me today for a brief astrological chart reading for the late Matthew Perry. According to Astro.com, Matthew Perry was born on August 19th, 1969 at 4:47 a.m. in North Adams, Massachusetts. Matthew Perry was a Hollywood actor best known for playing the role of Chandler on the popular sitcom Friends. He passed away on October 28th, 2023 during the partial lunar eclipse in Taurus. This eclipse was conjunct his natal Saturn and opposing his natal moon in Scorpio, and eclipses that aspect Saturn usually bring about karmic endings or debts having to be paid based on past deeds. And I think this death was activated by this lunar eclipse conjunct his natal Saturn opposing his natal moon in Scorpio. So what I'm going to do today is look at what aspects in his chart indicate the cause of death. Matthew has a sun and ascendant in Leo at 26 degrees and 10 degrees respectively. His moon is in its fallen Scorpio at 7 degrees, opposed by Saturn and Taurus at 8 degrees. His Neptune is in Scorpio at 29 degrees, which is squaring his sun in Leo. The Neptune square sun aspect inclines someone to addictive tendencies to mask deep insecurities and depression. Whitney Houston, Jada Pinkett, Ben Affleck, and Bobby Brown also have this aspect. Neptune is the planet of escapism, ego death, oblivion, and release. And when you have Neptune making a dissonant aspect to any planet, that planet becomes weaker. The person becomes confused, imbalanced, and diffused, which ironically is excellent for entertainers and performers who have to relinquish their ego to bare their souls to their audience by singing, dancing, acting, or some other form of performance. They have to merge with the spirit of the character that they're playing or the music that they're singing or dancing to. But this aspect also makes people self-destructive, and they sacrifice themselves for their relationships, their jobs, their families, their beliefs, or their addictions. A lot of these people use their addictions to connect with God because the vessel of the human body separates them from the source of unconditional love, peace, and acceptance, which is what they want more than anything else. These people who have Neptune square the sun, or Neptune conjunct sun, or opposing the sun or the ascendant, they're very fragile, but they're also resilient. They're psychic and empathic or empathetic. People with Neptune square their sun want more than nothing than to merge with something greater than themselves. And when they can't find a relationship, a religion, a job, or creative outlet to connect with, they try to sublimate themselves in drugs and alcohol. And this sublimation dissolves their ego so that they can forget that they actually exist. Like Whitney Houston, who's another Leo, and also, what's his name? Ben Affleck. Matthew Perry was a relatively attractive person, and they destroyed their body with drugs and alcohol. The body is the primary source of ego identification, and it encapsulates the spirit and separates the physical body from higher dimensions of existence, because the body represents the crystallization of energy into physical matter, which is facilitated by Saturn. And so, before I get too deep into that, Matthew was found dead and alone in his massive jacuzzi. I do see that he has Neptune and Scorpio in the 4th house of burial and the home. Neptune rules drowning, suicide, and addiction. So Matthew was buried underneath the water in his home, more than likely as a result of his past addictions. I'm not saying that he died of an overdose. I'm saying that there's a possibility, because he has Neptune square his sun in Leo, he could have died of a heart attack due to, the substance abuse that he went through in the past. So not only does Matthew have Neptune in the 4th house, which is the house of burial and death and family, but the dispositor of his 8th house, which is Pisces, is also Neptune, which represents death and endings and transformation as well. So we see that water and addictions may have played a role in his death. Matthew Perry also has his North Node in the same house as Chiron, opposing the 8th house ruler of Pisces, which is Jupiter. Now I'm going to say this. When I see people with Chiron in the same house as a North Node, their lives tend to have some sort of tragedy associated with it. Like everybody dies, right? We just lost, what's his name? Richard Roundtree a couple days ago. Like celebrities die all the time, people die all the time. But when you have Chiron on the North Node, it's almost as if the death is a tragedy. Like it shouldn't have happened the way that it did. There's something more sorrowful about this person's death when I see the North Node and Chiron together, okay? So the dispositor of Matthew's 8th house is Jupiter, and Jupiter is in a sign of Libra, and Libra is ruled by Venus, and Matthew's Venus is in Cancer in the 12th house. So he had a lot of secret grief and sorrow and sadness, and we see a 4th, 8th, 12th house connection here. I'm not going to say he died of a broken heart, but considering the way he treated his body and the reasons why he was abusing himself with drugs and alcohol, you know, it wouldn't be far-fetched to say that he was basically committing very slow suicide with his addiction, okay? So Matthew also had Saturn opposing the moon in Scorpio, the sign of its fall. The moon represents the mother, our emotions, our thoughts, our childhood, and what we need to feel safe. People with moon opposite, conjunct, or square Saturn have a complicated relationship with their mother. They may feel emotionally, mentally, or physically detached from their mother or their childhood home, like they don't belong there. So these natives may feel emotionally, mentally, or physically detached from their mother for whatever reason. And like the moon in Capricorn children, people who have Saturn making a dissonant aspect to their moon, their parents may be divorced, separated, or they're in a loveless marriage. And so moon opposite Saturn can indicate some sort of separation between the mother and the father. Matthew also has moon square ascendant and Saturn square ascendant. He felt lonely, worthless, and like a burden, so he used Neptune to escape. Neptune is a planet of addictions, drugs, but also acting and performing, and this is how he self-soothed or self-medicated or managed his painful feelings. The drugs and the alcohol and the acting was a vehicle that Matthew used to escape his deep feelings of depression and loneliness. And Neptune is in the same sign as his moon, but they're in different houses. There's a 12-degree separation between them. So Matthew used drugs and alcohol to deal with his emotional problems, with Neptune connecting to the moon in that way. Matthew Perry's moon is in his 3rd house of communication and thinking. He was deeply affected by his parents' separation, and he may have blamed himself for the divorce, as Saturn is also a planet that causes shame, humiliation, guilt, grief, and depression. So Saturn, the planet of depression, separation, responsibilities, and pain, is opposing his moon in the 3rd house of thinking and communication. He did not love himself, and he felt like he deserved to suffer because of something that happened to his mother. There's also a sense of isolation or separation from his siblings because the 3rd house is also the house of siblings. He experienced profound loneliness. I don't think he ever married or had children because he had a difficult time connecting to anyone on an emotional level, because in general he just felt worthless and like he was an inconvenience to people. And so he didn't feel like he belonged anywhere or to anyone. So he preferred to be alone, to wallow in self-pity and addiction. Neptune square the sun has an eclipsing effect on a person's identity and their sense of ego. These people can feel like they don't really exist, or that their existence is meaningless or an inconvenience to others. Ironically, Matthew's last Instagram post looks very Neptunian. He is in this large jacuzzi, almost like an ocean. And in this picture, he's in a jacuzzi at night with the moon looking down on him. And there's this dark purple Neptunian hue or lighting in the photo. And Neptune rules the color purple. In the photo, you can't tell who Matthew Perry is, right? His identity is obscured by the largesse of this jacuzzi and the darkness of the night, both of which are ruled by the moon and Neptune. In this last photo, it looks like the moon and the water are actually the focus of this photo, which is very ironic with Matthew having the sun and ascendant in Leo. This picture is the complete opposite of Leo or the sun. Here we can see the sublimation process. We can see Matthew kind of surrendering to the comfort and the warmth of Neptune, because he mentioned how comfortable this pool was, this jacuzzi was, which in my mind represents the womb or the mother. And the moon is in the backdrop of this photo, which is, again, ironic. I'm not going to say eerie. Eerie is a weird word to use, but it's very ironic. And so we can see the diffusing effects of Neptune that can bury the light of the sun in the fog of addiction, codependency, and depression. So this last photo was sort of like a denouement for this tragic life story. Again, it looks like he's surrendering to the largesse and the oblivion of Neptune, which is this massive body of water, this jacuzzi, and this purple light. And so he feels comfortable here. He feels safe and warm. I wouldn't be surprised if at this point he was ready to go. He was ready to let go and release into whatever. It could have been changing his identity, turning over a new leaf, getting clean, but I think he was ready to go. And so he kind of surrendered to his fourth house in Neptune, which is like oblivion and loss and endings. The good news is that Matthew is at peace now, and he has shed what we call the mortal coil, and hopefully he realizes that he was never truly alone, that he was beloved by many people and God. It may take a few weeks for him to acclimate to this transition, but ultimately I believe he will find peace. All right, guys, I'm gonna leave it there. If you want to hear more astrological insights from me, feel free to join the Stargazer membership tier, where I post weekly chart interpretations about celebrities and events. I will post at least 5 readings per month, and your support is greatly appreciated because it gives me more time to do this type of work, which I really, really love to do. Thank you again. Please like, share, and subscribe, or join the membership, and I will speak to you soon.